the reason why I started is because that's my strength. And I always say to people, don't go invent something new. Utilize something what you already know, a previous corporate knowledge, your business knowledge, your parents, whatever it's, what is your strength, go that path, because that's a guarantee that you're gonna deliver to your clients great products and services.
Welcome back to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. We've got an exciting topic today, information on the most valuable commodity, espionage in the digital world. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm so grateful that you're here listening or watching this podcast episode. I would encourage you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow or subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss another episode and we can get this podcast out to the wider world. Today, I'm honored and to welcome a truly extraordinary guest to the podcast, Mario Bekes. He is a hero you never knew you needed, bringing decades of unparalleled expertise as Managing Director of Insight Intelligence Group, a premier provider of investigative and interrogative solutions for cheating partners. Mario holds a Guinness Book record from 2023 and serves as an ambassador and an activist for humanity. With remarkable 1,800 consecutive combat days in war, his experience as a military intelligence and diplomatic security intelligence operative is unmatched. Now a successful business owner in Sydney, Australia, Mario is also the best-selling author of Academic. His insights into human behaviour and the value of information in our digital world or digital age is invaluable. Mario, welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Anthony, thank you so much for having your amazing podcast. So guys, if you don't listen this podcast, you're doing a big mistake. Tune in, because Anthony, it's a great host, great episodes, and you're going to be empowered with each one. So thank you, Anthony, for having me today.
Thank you, Mario. You sound like a secret agent, almost like James Bond.
That's a good one. Look, I had a meeting this morning, so I've been dressed, as I usually for the Monday morning meetings with the clients. But look, my world it was a little bit shady. First of all, I want to say to people to take this to the heart. I want to convince everybody, because what do you wish for? It will come true. In my life, it did happen. I wanted to become the soldier. I become the soldier. I want to have the war. I got the war. I want to become the spy. I become the spy. And I said to myself, interesting, how the things developed. And look, my world was spent from being in the military for 14 years, 5 years in combat. And then subsequently, when I want to exit the Department of Defense, the government always has something for you. And we have a better job for you, everything else. They try to convince you how good it is for you to stay. I stayed, and the transfer from Department of Defense, Republic of Croatia, to Department of Foreign Affairs. And I work at that stage was called then Directorate 7, which was Foreign Intelligence and Security.
Thank you. And amazing, 1,800 combat days. Wow.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal.
Look, it is, when you look in our life, we all try to make a big statements, when everything is over. When I was in the military, when I was in a war, I think after 6 months in a war, I had enough. I literally had enough, because I went in a war at quite early age. There was no such a thing, resilience or courage or something like this. I wake up one morning and Yugoslavia was falling apart. So it happened on the 14th of July. I was night before very drunk. I was just 18 years old, and my girlfriend dumped me, and I need to recuperate myself the following day. So I said to myself, I'm going to stay in the bed. And somebody was knocking on the door very, heavily, some so who is now? Why nobody opens the door? And it was a weekend. I'm looking around in the kitchen. It was a one-bedroom unit. It's me, my mom, dad, and my brother. And there's nobody there. I opened the door. There's a military police, and they say, Comrade Mario, you just want to report to the duty. So, long story short, I was instead of reporting to Army barracks, I joined to the Ministry of Interior of Republic of Croatia, Special Forces. to fight for democracy. For me, democracy was definition was a Coca-Cola, McDonald's, those things. That was for me democracy. But on that token, I found same day the message on a kitchen desk. My parents left a note, "We're okay." And like, what I had choice, I had no choice. I had no parents, nobody. War, just start rolling fast and fast and faster. And suddenly you can see 5 years go like this in the war, like, what I mean? And then suddenly there's a peace. I say, okay, what am I going to do now? So 5 years is a long time, yeah.
It is a very long time. So, Mario, what inspired you to transition from that high-stakes military operations to building your own investigative business?
Oh, when I come to Australia in 98, by the way, it's going to be anniversary couple of days time. It's going to be 26 years in Croatia, 26 years in Australia. So on 18th of November 98, I arrived in Australia to work in Croatian embassy in Canberra. So I decided I was being offered a different role after the Australia, to go in the US in Washington, and that's a very lucrative role, right? You know what I mean? But then I said to myself, I need to have the family. I want to have a kid. I want to have something. And I decided to stay. And that transition was very painful because one day when I found myself without gun and badge, I mean, the government has a great tools to keep you to work. But once when you transition out in civilian world, like military, they don't care for you anymore. Like, suddenly you are left on your own. So what I did, I started working as a bouncer, as a cleaner in the kitchens, the taxi driver. I've been, what's it calling? I was upset, I must say, Anthony, it wasn't pleasant, I mean? I was married at that stage, I got a child, got my son, but I blame everybody and anybody for my downfalls, I mean? Because, I expected that world owes me. That world owes me, even you, even I know you, Anthony, he owes me in New Zealand to I be the head of the ASIO. Such a stupid, naive, idiotic thinking. So step by step, but GFC happens 2009. Eventually, my family and I were falling apart. We lost everything, house and the car, and it was a very difficult times for all of us. My son diagnosed with epilepsy. I said to myself, if I don't start doing my business now, I'm never going to start doing my business. And I had nothing, no knowledge previous about any type of business. So I started my inside intelligence on first October 2009. So that was that reason why I started my business, because I was being literally forced, I would say.
Yeah. And what were the challenges that you faced through this shift?
Look, the list, it's too long. Podcast show is too short. I would say like the biggest challenge I faced, I can go with the list now. Nobody look after me. Nobody want to help me. There's no money. There's no this. There's no. I said to myself, the biggest challenge for my success was me. I have the biggest challenge. I was the guy with the biggest knowledge. I know everything. I know I should do this. A part of this that life was showing me that I need to learn, get qualifications in Australia, tertiary qualifications or whatever it is. No, I was grinding, how I know everything. I know how it should be done. Instead of learning and adopting, adjusting, and improvising, I think that my biggest challenge now, from this point of view, was me to myself. I was sabotaging myself mostly because my mindset was a terrible. And then you need to take a step back and say to yourself, what I'm doing wrong, and I was doing everything wrong because I didn't take no advice whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that's an honest opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to take responsibility for yourself, because no one is coming to save us. And also, to observe what's going on within us, right? And
Yes, that's
so,
correct.
for you at that point, it was all about understanding, like you said, what was I doing wrong? But it was more like, what's happening for me and what do I need to observe and be conscious about? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were the pivotal moments during that time in that military or diplomatic corps that influenced your approach to corporate investigations today?
I think that we are all being misguided in life. My parents always told me, "You're never gonna be nothing. You're never gonna be nothing." People told me, "Don't do this, don't do that." Like every time when I dare to dream or I try to achieve some goals, it's been so many times told to me why I shouldn't do things. Well, when I was talking to my ex-boss, who was my boss in intelligence, I said to him, Damir, that's his name, Damir. I said, Damir, I don't know what to do. He says to me, leave the security out of the equation because everybody does security. Everybody's an expert, what's it called, security. He said, but your expertise is investigation. Your expertise is human intelligence. I said, like, okay, I understand. So, you need to start somewhere. So, like, I started become the private investigator. So I wanted to become the private investigator, but the company I was applying to, they told me I'm not good enough to become private investigator because of my language, my background, list goes on. I said, like, I don't want to swear now. I said, okay, I'll do this my way. So what I did, I started my company, Inside Intelligence Group. I printed the Sherlock Holmes hat with my mobile number, and I said, my marketing starts today. And I was thinking, do you need a PI? Everywhere, shopping centers, community boards. That's how I started. So the reason why I started is because that's my strength. And I always say to people, don't go invent something new. Utilize something what you already know, a previous corporate knowledge, your business knowledge, your parents, whatever what is your strength, go that path because that's a guarantee that you're gonna deliver to your clients great products and services. So I said to myself, okay, after investigating, all these true like traitors and spies and interrogating all these terrorists and everything else, I think that corporate investigations is much more suitable for me. That's the reason why. Yeah.
And what does that involve with the corporate investigations?
Look, I started as a PI, so I started as a infidelity investigations. Very quickly, I found myself, I wanted to do more challenge. So I go in one insurance company for the one meeting, which was like before the tender. And I said to myself, look at these guys in the suits and, like this must be $75 per hour. I said, wow, like, that's must, I'm going to make a millions now. And then I spoke with a lady. She was in charge of the tendering. I said, look, I had doubt that I'm going to win. I'm the one-man band. I'm happy to learn. If you can teach me how to become better corporate investigator, what we need. She says to me, the best way to you learn is to give you the job. So she gave me the first case. And I said, like, okay, because I was approaching, very naive, I said, like, if I don't perform the way you want me to perform, you're expecting you can tell everybody on the market that my product is a bad, right? She says, we don't do these things. I said, like, but you can do it. So the fact it is that I started implementing current investigative methods was seen by clients, by many of them. And they said, like, how do you come with those things? I said, like, but that's my knowledge, that's my experience. And then I met a gentleman called Professor Clyde Smallman. He's from New Zealand. And he says to me, Mario, if you allow me, I'd like to be your mentor. Let me share with you books, write the books. And everything what I was, had a big resistance to do it because I was afraid that I'll not be able to convey the message. We did it. So we done the book on corporate investigations, criminal investigations, and that my knowledge slowly started implementing into my cases. And then I hired one person in my office, admin person, half time, then second person, half time, and slowly things start rolling with me. So that's how it was for me, that transition from the corporate investigations, interrogations to corporate. Sorry, government to corporate. Yeah.
So can you share an example where a case, of course, it's not going into detail, but share a case where your insight into human behavior made all the difference?
One thing what everybody forgets, we are all programmable. We human beings. Like I remember on Intelligence Academy, I had a lady. She walks in and she says, like, from the moment you were born, you're being programmed. So like,
Mm.
oh come on, like, can you imagine me 24 years old, like, oh, whatever, yeah, like that. I mean,
It's so true, though, isn't it?
yeah, like I mean, like you don't take this seriously. But what she said, like everything what we do, it's a numbers.
It's a program, yeah.
And she said we need to just tap into that code if we want to extract information. Interrogation methods are usually implying the type of the methods you will not see in approved by the about with human rights, and the civil society, everything else. Because we're talking now, sleep deprivation, food deprivation, the high noise and all these things. When investigative methods are the purely you need to do imagination. So every detective you see on a TV, when I'm laughing, it's they're using imagination. So you need to understand the crime, you need to imagine how would you do this or how that person did, and then with obtaining evidence, you deducting the theories into the one working theory, and then you try to put a more meat, with evidence, facts, and so on. So I'll tell you that I had a case where the client couldn't break into the mind, I would say, so-called mind, right? And I told them that sometimes you need to apply the different methods. It's called social engineering, right? Social engineering, it is that you're engaging person in conversation, open conversation. You need to create a story which doesn't involve Snow White and Seven Dwarfs. So the person interest is that person. Then you have the story, which needs to be prepared for the person who's going to approach to you, and that story must have a lot of facts and valid information about somebody's life, and then you engage your conversation. People have a tendency to relax. So my client, we trained somebody for that particular task. Personal interest was willing to talk, and actually relinquish most information we needed to find out that he was stealing all these informations. So it's a case overseas. It took a few months to complete that task, but it was programmable. And I mean, we knew that it's this circumstantial evidence leads to one person, but you can't prove because it was so good, right? The other thing it is, when you have the employee of the month, that's usually the problem, right? Usually employee of the month is the big problem, people. So I had a case where the employee of the month never took the holiday, never sick leave, nothing. And I said, like, but they start seeing that there's some discrepancy occurring, but they can't prove where. And I basically said, like, look, I think you should take an employee of the month and send forcible on a holiday for 2 weeks. Of course, that causes a lot of friction with the gentleman. And I explained to him, you need to take it because you can't just work. I said, like, look, you can't apply the methods just looking for the investigative things. You need to start now removing the obstacle which prevent you to do investigations, which is a gentleman. And of course, as soon as they send him home for 2 weeks, his counter will, because he couldn't do nothing with the paperwork, shows a lot of theft for the gambling and so these things. So that's some of the cases I can share with you.
Before we go into other questions, like
Yeah.
like the mindset, your mindset going through not only the being in the military, but also through this business. Like, how has your mindset been through this during that time, but also through the transition and then leading into your business now?
Look, I said at the beginning, I think if I have someone like you in my life who can guide me, I'll be happy. I think that, as I said, my biggest enemy was me, my alter ego. I know everything. I know everything. I know how to do it. Leave me alone. Everybody's stupid. Everybody's this and that. My mindset was not clear because I think I put myself under a lot of duress because I want to quickly recover the losses and save my family, which I couldn't.
Mm,
So I was being, my decision was being clouded. Even I was having that Professor Clive on the side telling me, slowly in a nice way to do differently. But the military mindset for me helped me because I stay persistent. You see, in my vocabulary, it doesn't exist word we can't do it.
mm,
Till the moment I breathe, everything is possible. You know what I mean? Why I will give up of anything on anything if I can't fight? So mindset it is. There is a statistically speaking, I would say like I'll lie to you now. I think it's a 9,000 calories you can check. 9,000 calories two chess players burn per game of the chess. And you think yourself like chess players. And then you think, okay, the brain works overtime because the brain it's
mm,
actually require a lot of energy. We ignoring that fact. Now, I don't say people to play the chess to lose the weight, but I think it is if we clouding our mind is gonna work overtime to find solution. And I couldn't find solution, you know what I mean? So I need to have somebody to advise me on the side, which is a Professor Klaus Woman. Plus, I said to myself, okay, when he gave me the task, I knew that I'm going to accomplish the task because the key objective and one of the biggest mistakes people doing in life, in the business, and everything else it is, I'm advising this. It's don't look how you're going to come today, but do timetable, you know what I mean? But the step number one, I'm going to by I don't know, in 7 days, I'm going to talk to Anthony. Next 7 days, I'm going to schedule the podcast. In next 7 days, I'm going to have an interview. That's 21 days. Instead of people put like, I'm going to have a champion mindset collective podcast. I'm going to have an interview next 7 days. That day, and you say like, Mario, I'm sorry, there's no spot. You know what I mean? That's a disappointment. And that's what I was doing to myself. I said to myself, step back. How did I done this in the war? How done this in the military? How done that in intelligence? That is follow the timetable. So the less disappointment, more achievements, and I was being able to control my mind more successfully rather than give myself the deadlines and
mm.
then I'll fall apart. So
Yeah,
mindset is very important and important people like you who can guide us.
yeah. Do you know, interesting, I was just listening to a podcast before this call,
Yeah,
and this guy was talking about he doesn't set goals anymore. He says he doesn't set goals. He hasn't set
yeah,
goals for years. What he does is he visualizes his vision, and that's his goal, you know. And so there's only one thing that he's focused on is that vision that he has. But also what you were saying before about the chess game and being able to
yeah.
burn so many calories. I mean, a lot of people think that our mind or our brain is a separate from our body, right? But it's actually part of our body. And our mind, it doesn't just sit in our brain. It actually goes all through our body because there's nerves, and you've heard of the heart-brain coherence, but you've
Yeah,
also heard of the gut and the brain coherence as well.
that's good. Yes,
Yeah, so the vagus nerve. But like there are millions of nerves that go all through our body, and each of the cells has their own little micro brains as well,
yes.
right?
Look, yeah. No, you know, absolutely. That's. I agree with you because, I remember on one of the trainings we done. We used to be being sent on 14 days or some survival skills, interrogation skills, all these things, And I do remember that doctor. He told us you die 20,000 times per day.
Mm.
Again, enter like you can imagine 21 years old, like what, like I'm the Rambo. I mean, what do you mean dying 20
Your cells
times
are
per day?
regenerating. Yeah.
Yeah, because he said like you inhale and exhale 20 times per day. He said like every time when you exhale, it's your last breath. That's what people say refer last breath.
Mm.
But I couldn't take it seriously then, because I was young, just I was just a happy trigger and everything else. But then hit me later on in some other trainings. And that's what you're saying. I mean, our mind, we try to separate from the body. We can't because mind controls our breathing. We don't control breathing. We don't even control the heartbeat, you know what I mean? But what we control, and as I say, like I'm proud to talk to you, it's our mind.
Yeah.
How are we gonna action something?
Yeah. And also like when we breathe in, we're breathing in new life. But when we're
Mm,
breathing out, we're breathing out the things that no longer serve us, right? And so if you look at it that way, where if your mind and your heart is in coherence, then when you're breathing in, you're feeding your heart with the new energy and you're breathing out that old energy that doesn't serve you anymore.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So now here's an interesting thing. Technology is advancing so rapidly, right? And like, how does digital espionage become a major threat? Like, what are the trends in digital world that are most concerning to you when it comes to information security?
I think that this is the first of all, we need to understand that we are at the leap of faith. We evolve so quickly, so rapidly. My son, who is at 21 years old, and I see him when he study, he says to me, dude, who's using pen and paper? I said to him, what do you mean who's using pen and paper? He's like, why are you writing everything on pen and paper? Why not using iPad or something like this? I said, look, mate, I said him, his name is Matteo. I said, listen, Matteo, maybe I'm obsolete, maybe I'm the dinosaur, but I don't know how else to do it because I can use computer, but I find much more quicker on pen and paper, highlighters. He's laughing to me. And then during my investigations, we're doing quite a lot of investigations into the crypto and the Bitcoin fraud. Technology connects people, but connects people on the wrong ways and the good ways. On the wrong ways, it is that there's a lot of lonely people, and there's a lot of people who are need instant information. Latest statistics in Australia shows that most of the people go to Dr. Google to ask for the symptoms, asking for diagnosis based on symptoms. So they don't go to doctor, they don't trust a doctor. People say, I want to become the rich. Where you go? You go to Holy Grail of the knowledge, Dr. Google. Now, everything on the internet doesn't necessarily need to be, it's true. There's no regulatory body who says this is true, this is bad, this is correct, it's not correct. I'm not talking about misinformation, disinformation. I'm talking about people being deliberately and purposely brought into the system. It's sometimes called, the latest trend is called pig butchering, which basically what they do, they're stealing your money through the love relationship. Now, technology, it is our problem. It is a curse and is a blessing. We can store more information. It's what's it called? You can transfer information quicker. You can transport information. So you can transfer. You can do whatever you like. You can present. You don't need to bring the papers and folders, anything else. However, I'm seeing a lot of people in public places, and I've done a couple of these articles where I'm seeing that people don't pay attention. They talk too loud. They're whispering, so loud about their strategies and marketing and anything else. And if you listen, that's the one thing you can get information. But what it is, people either lose laptops, iPads. One of the biggest, scariest thing it is a phone cloning. I always say to my clients, don't do business in a foyer or hotel. Don't have your phone on the table. Don't let nobody put phone next to you. When you're on a plane, I say on a plane, that's another thing where technology plays the deadly role against everybody. People turn on a Wi-Fi which is unprotected, and when you're on an airplane, people just typing. You don't see nothing behind. Imagine somebody knows, Anthony from Champion Mindset Collective Podcast. I want to have secrets of his podcast. He's gonna be on a plane between New Zealand. Yeah, it sounds funny. You see, you think you're irrelevant. That's what the people think. I'm irrelevant. The biggest relevance for industrial espionage is not a CEO. CEO, it's easy to hack. They're easy to go. They love to talk. They love to drink. They love to party. They love to blah about leadership. I can't say on this podcast how to do, but people interested can contact me. But who is the gatekeeper in every corporation? It's a PA. They know everything. And that's my job. That's my job, PA. So people are like, when you're on a plane, why you work on a plane? You don't see behind you. So Anthony goes from New Zealand to Australia to see me, bringing the secrets about podcasting. They're going to be somebody on that plane, if we know, who's going to sit behind you. And I'm going to know half of your life before you land. So technology, it is our biggest hurdle. You can't protect information. I always say to people, as much as we love digital, be prepared for the analog, which means some type of typewriting machines, pen and paper, try to store the records, in a printout, so whatever it is. I mean, so yeah, technology, it is our enemy as much as our friend.
Mm, mm. So how have the digital espionage, espionage evolved over the last 30 years of your career?
Digital espionage always going to exist. Digital espionage. Digital espionage always going to exist. It works in cohesion with human intelligence. So digital espionage. It's part of digital intelligence. Technical intelligence. Satellite intelligence and these things. So we become seeing ourselves less and less. We can hide things from our competitor. We can less hide what we put out. But the beautiful thing it is about digital technology is that we can control what is out and measure, and we can direct that message to the competitor. So it can be dual. The unfortunate one thing, Anthony, and that's going to happen even more. It's a sabotaging as a part of digital industrial espionage. It's a sabotaging people reputation, the product and services. That's what it is to say. It's evolving, and the corporations need to start catching up with those things. I always advising people, sometimes called a Schwerpunkte. It's a methodology being done by the German Wehrmacht in Second World War, where you find the weakest point and you explore with the maximum force. So corporations should start adopting that type of exercise in their corporations once per month. What if, you know what I mean? So we all know, and I'm sorry I've taken this lengthy answer, the best protection it's not post-mortem analysis, which everybody is glorifying talking about. It's two things. One, it's called a pre-mortem analysis, where you're taking the 3 worst-case scenarios and you drill them. And then when you come to solution, you say something's called the Alexander question, which it is. You ask that, it's called Alexander question, people can Google. That's the intelligence sector. Is like, but what if that scenario we solve fell? So you have 3 worst, try to solve them, and then you come to the point where you say, I solve all problems, and then you say self, it's called Alexander question. What if that solution doesn't work? And then you know how you're going to respond, and then you put those mechanisms in place. That's what I'm trying to assess and help the clients.
And so like, what kind of mindset does these companies and these customers need to cultivate, and what advice would you give them in order to protect themselves from these threats?
Loyalty. I wish a corporation have more loyal people like yourself. I was recently in Berlin. I was doing some public speaking day, and for those who don't know, the East Berlin was head office was there of the infamous called Stasi, the German intelligence secret police services, one of the most modern, advanced services, being caught off the guard. They were still receiving reports from the spies across the globe, and they were collapsing. So when I was talking to the people over there, and I said, like, how come nobody betrayed the Stasi? Like, it cannot be just a fear. He says, no, Mario, it was a loyalty. I said, like, I don't understand. He said, people were loyal to the state, people loyal to the party, people loyal to the cause. If the corporations are part of you applying all these trainings and give them the manuals, how to protect themselves from the eavesdropping, surveillance, industrial espionage, and list goes on, you need to cultivate that mindset in corporations, that their employees be loyal. Because every time when you retrench somebody, when you make redundant somebody, most of your information goes out. And CEOs doesn't care. CEO doesn't care. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna make the profit this year. No, you'll not have, because king is dead. Long live the king. I know already now in Asia the new trends emerging. New acquisitions, and with the better products. Look at Temu. Temu is you heard for Temu. Temu is now taking apart Amazon, and Temu's been now slowed down in so many countries. But see, they were sitting on the side. It's like what Amazon does, and they don't hide that Temu employ many people in Amazon. They took their knowledge, come back, Let's go do cheaper, let's go do better, let's go do faster.
Yeah.
So people need to have the coaches like yourself to build that mindset of the loyalty to the corporation. That's a best prevention and best tool they can have on their disposal.
Mm-hmm. Right. So your experience spans from those combat days in the war zones to the high level interrogations. How did these intensive environments shape your understanding and of trust and deception?
Look, when you do interrogations, the Julius Caesar always said, I had the betrayals. Sorry, I love betrayals. I hate traitors. Same goes in military intelligence and diplomatic intelligence. I never could understand people who will work against their own state and their own people, everything else. So I will pay them personal attention to these things. So when you interrogate these type of people, you know that deception. You see, most of the people who are spying for somebody, they're not trained spies. They're normal people. They're employees. They've been given all these tasks. Usually sometimes called the MICE methodology: money, what's it called, coercion, ego, and the part of the information system, right? So it's a patriotism. So intimidation, MICE. Yeah. So the thing is, you're gonna get somebody one of those four elements: is a money, is a patriotic. Is a to coercion or through the ego. Because people are gonna be revengeful towards. The point is, try to make to one corporation start losing money. They say like, "But we have a contract with such and such a person." He tell them everything. You can't stop to tell them everything. It doesn't matter what contract you have, and they hate you. They hate you because you make them redundant. There's the people who's going to work in corporation for the money because they need the money. But when they're caught, they don't know how to deceive. The problem is when you find a source who is engaging those people on somebody else's behalf. That's where deception starts. The truth is, look, the truth is irrelevant. It's not up to me or you to know the truth. That's a magistrate decides what the truthful is not. Magistrate says, to jury, what do you think your probabilities, somebody guilty, not guilty after presenting case. But deception, it's always going to exist. And people we are dealing on daily basis, I say like, always be careful of those who bear you gifts, because there's a reason why they bear you gifts, bring you gifts and everything else. So trust and deception, it's go together, because you can't trust somebody who is deceiving you, and you can't deceive somebody if you trust them. So usually people who are going to breach trust are the biggest deceivers and liars, and they're going to try to bring you down. And I always say to people, more you buy, less you sell. Walls have the ears. So, people can't deceive you if they don't know everything, and you have that gift, you have that knowledge, Anthony. You are the coach. Use your gut feeling. That's interrogation, the gut feeling,
Gut feeling, yeah. Yeah. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right.
So yeah, like we can I can give you signs and things. Everybody try to see a different way. There's many symbols, many signs, many elements, many methods, how people try to lie to you, deceive everything else. The point is, I have no time for these ones. Because you know how we're going to you know how you're going to discover the lies. Everybody has this timeline. What's your name? Anthony. When is your born? This? Where have you been? Stupid. I say like, listen, Anthony, let's go start from the end. You see, the human brain is wired to think forward, not backwards. And criminals, they know this. And that's our successful interrogations. I have the people who are there, sitting there, hungry for 24 hours. I come with the subway and say, like, you look at my subway, here you go subway. You want a Coke, here you go Coke. And they will talk. But there's the people, who try to be smarter than you. And it's like, okay, let's go start your name, Okay, so you say that night you done this and this. The brain's confused. And that's a deception you can discover. Start from the end, not from the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, and that works with us. That's so true, because if we start with our end goal in mind as general human beings, and we work
Yeah.
backwards, because the end goal gives us the vision, and often that vision can be quite big, and a lot of people get overwhelmed. But if you break
Yes.
that, if you break that down into, you know, 12 months, 9 months, 6 months, 3 months, and so on, then it
Yeah.
doesn't become so overwhelming anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I guess you're using that same analogy to start at the end goal. Yeah, exactly. So, as someone who's spent years in investigative and intelligence work, what advice would you give to a business or leaders who are about valuing and protecting the information as a key asset?
I think that most of corporations, they're lacking the, they don't have the good response time, and they have no great team on the board. And I call this clearly and loudly because today you can invest into people for very cheap money overseas, without tracing, anybody
Mm,
to anybody to anything, to destroy your reputation. And I'm seeing this a lot. There's a lot of these IT desks in Ukraine and Russia now who taking little money to work for you, to cause the damage. Now, there's something that's like I need to start, we talk about digital age. What people forgot for so many years, and then they try to put their head in the sand, that China, it's really evolved to such a point. They had something was called a 50 cent army. So they hired all these young patriots, from the schools. They're not soldiers, they're not police officers, young and old patriot who knows the computers, and they're doing for the behalf of the Communist Party, China. They're using the cyberspace to damage companies, corporations, the businesses and so on and so on. So there's a two aspects I would say to corporations need to work on it. Prevention is a mother of all successes. When your training and your what's it calling training and knowledge meets opportunity in the shape or size or form of some action, you're gonna win. If you have no training, if you don't have knowledge, you're lost. So I say to people, train your staff and people, key employees, how to deal with critical elements of the organization's reputation risk, big fraud, emergencies, so on and so on. But another element, as I said, mentioned this before, which I was surprised, and I should know this, it's building that mindset of employees that they belong to corporations. You know what I mean? That they belong to organization who cares for them, and they should care for them. And I'm not a guy who can do this. I'm not a mindset coach. You are, Anthony. So
mm,
guys, go to Anthony. But that's what I'm trying to say. You need to exercise people. People want to know that they belong to something. That
mm,
they, when I was growing up in communism, communism was a fantastic place for giving you all this, what's it called, brain programming. I'll not call hacking. You walk in the street, long live the party. Yeah, long live the party. It's like, everybody's our enemies. Everybody's our enemies. Just I forgot some of these things. Enemy listening. Enemies watching. All these things. So it's all these slogans everywhere. But we had this feeling we belong to that cause. So we are not forced, gun in head. We do it. They will take us in corporations and say, like, you see how your father works in factory so hard. You should work harder. Yeah, I can do more. So the kids will work for free, and because we believe we belong to cause. Same with you, and you know that is. So I said to corporations, information it's very valuable commodity, and
mm,
to protect, you need to train corporation and staff how to respond to critical events. But most importantly, you need to coach your staff and train your staff to know that belong to something bigger
mm.
and better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And belonging is a need that every human being desires, to belong to something.
Yes.
Yeah. And and many people have said this, along with Tony Robbins, who have said that you know it it is one of the fundamental needs of a human being. So before we go into the quickfire questions, I've got a couple of questions. Why do you think information has become so valuable today in the world?
I think our information was always most valuable commodity in life,
Mm,
but we now it's, as you mentioned before, it's become so quick. It's like
mm.
it's you and I talk right now. You can
It's there.
choose.
Yeah.
It's there. Like, oh, I'm gonna put this podcast in 10 minutes. Boom, it's out. Boom. You know what I mean? So I remember when I was working military intelligence. I used to be escorting some generals, right? And they will have
Mm.
these leather suitcases, tied up around the around the hand, you know what I mean, and 6, 7 bodyguards, you know what I mean, and we will walk with him, and he will come to the door. Doors open, bodyguard stays out. I go with him inside. The envelope is open, and there's one piece of paper, right? That's the information. But the person from point A to point B need to wait 4 hours to get that information. Today, it's there.
It's there in an instant. Yeah.
You can't avoid. So decision making depend upon information received.
Mm.
And that's the reason why information becomes most valuable commodity, because having the right information, because people, not every information is just information. Information needs to be checked. In intelligence work, it's called source reliability and information availability. So you need to know what's the source. Is that a newspaper, which is a blast, couple outlets, media outlets, blah, 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 or who said, person who you trust most, is an asset A1 or is a some D7, random guy heard on the street. So source has information has a source and has a reliability. So the thing is, you need to check those things before you use it. But as you said, in next 10 minutes, we can put this podcast out and we can tell everybody, or we can wait another 3 weeks, and put out. So just metaphorically speaking. So information availability, information right now, is determine what decision you're going to make it later today.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. So last question before we go into the quickfire questions is what are some of the common mistakes that companies are making, and how can when they're trying to safeguard this information, and how can they avoid these pitfalls? I mean, we talked about like with people being made redundant and things like that,
Yeah.
and whistleblowers and this and that. So what could they do?
Look, doesn't matter what we do. Like when I was leaving intelligence service, right? This is true story. This is real. I do remember I was about to be married, and I was in Croatia, and I was sitting opposite my boss, and he asked me 10 times, "Are you sure?" I say yes. Yeah, let's have another small coffee. Are you sure? Yeah. Are you sure? Are you sure? Yeah. And then the secretary comes inside with a piece of paper, literally like 5 lines. Me, Mario Bekes, there's a certain number, level of clearance. And he says, number 1, you're never going to talk about this particular information next 5 years. This 15, 25 years, never. Sign. So I knew at that moment that my life is being ready, shaped for the future. But this is because I believe in what I do. I could do some damage, as we said today, and talk to I don't know, somebody's like, in 99 in Brazil, I'm just lying now, it's not Brazil, but I said Brazil, happened something, right? So corporations need to understand that their biggest and strongest assets are their employees. They are safeguarding everything. How you treat them, how do you train them, how do you give them the validity, and you give them importance in your organization will determine your cost. Today, uncertainty on the market, the inflations, less money, people's going to look for the more and more to be, to make money, which means it's going to open their hearts and their minds even more and more and more. So safeguard your corporation by the train the mindset, you know what I mean, and look after employees. That's the best advice I can say.
Yeah. And I guess a part of that comes in consciousness as well, being conscious
Mm.
of what you're doing,
That's
where
correct,
you,
yes.
what you're really sharing information.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mario Bekes, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for this podcast episode. If people would like to get in touch with you, where would they be able to get hold of you?
Two ways. First of all, come on this podcast, Champion Mindset Collective. And just gonna leave my details. But guys,
Mhm.
feel free to come on my website, mariobekes.com.au. You know, I mean, or just ask the Holy Grail of the knowledge, Dr. Google. Just type Mario Bekes, Bekes. But that's like, you know, just watch this podcast and it's gonna put all details.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put the details in the show notes and the podcast description.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now before we end this podcast, I've got five quick fire questions for you, and
Yeah.
you can choose to answer this in a word or a sentence. The first
Yeah.
question is, what does success mean to you, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Yes. First, I was believing that success for me will be being rich and wealthy. But then I changed this with a one simple word: health. I think that health is most valuable commodity in life.
Mm,
Uh, Without health, we can't even dream. We can't even chase the dreams. We can't do nothing. So for me, success it's being healthy. When I'm healthy, I know I can do everything what I want. So I never trade time for health. I was gonna say success it's being healthy in a very unhealthy environment we live in now.
yeah. So it's breathing. If you're
Right.
breathing, you're going to be good, right?
That's correct, Anthony.
Yeah. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
Oh man, you're reading my mind there. Like, look, I know it's gonna sound very, very funny, but my grandfather Mato was my biggest source of my of who I am today.
Mm,
He was a one powerful man in ex Yugoslavia, second in charge of the intelligence secret police. But he was a very righteous man, and he was very hard man. But he loved me, and he always told me everything to become what he thinks is best for me. So he is the one I owe him so much. He's my inspiration, my
that's
grandfather.
amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
That's gonna go against you now. I think public speakers, as a I don't want to name them, but I think there's a lot of public speakers there who are actually waffling a lot and just make the money noise, while the people like Anthony, yourself, should be heard. You know, I mean, I think that society needs to give opportunity to people like yourself, Anthony, to speak and to be heard, exercise this natural justice, right to be heard, right to be spoken, because that's a true, everyday, ordinary, unsung heroes story helping me and life around us. So people disagree with this. They want to say, I don't know, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, all these ones. Good for you. I'd rather talk to you, Anthony, and
Yeah.
take your knowledge.
Yeah. And it's being able to speak your truth and you'll tell your story in the way that it unfurled, right?
Yeah.
If you could go back and give your younger Mario some advice, what would it be?
Ah, don't eat fast food. That's the one. I'm serious. I'm serious, man. Uh, and enjoy more life and less worry, because doesn't matter what we worry or not worry about. We are most of the time we are corrected and adjusted by the environment externally rather than internally. And but when it comes to fast food, I gained a lot of weight. I come to Australia because I opened my mouth and everything was just like, oh. But I think it is, yeah, worry less, Mario. Life is to be lived, and eat healthier. That's I'll say eat healthier. So that's that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that 97% of the things that we worry about never come true?
No, I didn't know this. My
No,
God, 97%.
97% of things that we worried about are never
Oh,
come true
no, I never heard
because
that one.
our mind, our thoughts are neutral, and they only have meaning when you give it meaning, right?
Ah, okay.
So if something happens and it's because if you're in a situation, and because your subconscious mind, your programming, what we were talking about before,
Yeah.
is is picking up fear. Well, fear is just a feedback. It's just
No, I
delivering a
didn't, no, I
message.
didn't, no, I didn't know this. No, no, that's it.
Yeah.
97%. You see, I told you, let's worry. I said it's you're
Yeah.
not just my
So
mind, like
we often treat fear as a enemy, but fear is
mhm.
actually our friend. It's telling us, giving us a message of the things we need to get out of our comfort zone, right? Because our
That's
comfort
a
zone,
big number, man.
yeah, our comfort zone is where our dreams go to die. And and if we don't get out of our comfort zone, then then that's it, you know. But the
You're
thing
right.
is, we have this fear and then we have this anxiety of what's going to happen. But it's like if we actually spent that energy on the present moment, you wouldn't have any problems because in the present moment, everything is fine.
That's interesting. Yeah.
You're
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna think now about this one because like you see how much I'm worried about in my life. 97% is a big number, man. Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Anthony. But thank you for sharing this.
Only 3% of things actually come true. So
Okay.
last question.
Yeah.
What is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
Believe in yourself.
Mm,
Even when nobody believes in you, you believe in yourself. I say like always this time, I repeating this, particularly when I talk to my son, I said to him, I wish I believed more in myself rather than relying that people are gonna believe in me. Because if I believe in myself, other people believe in me. But not showing that discipline to myself that I honoring my beliefs, how my client gonna believe me? He's gonna say to me, I don't, you don't talk with you don't convince me with your speech. So I said to everybody, believe in yourself, even nobody believes in you. Just do it. Just go for it and chase your dreams. Believe in that.
totally. And you know, for me, at the age of, I think, what was it, 18, I
Yeah.
started to believe in myself and I've never looked back. Always backed
Mm,
myself, always believed in
yeah.
myself. But remember, when we think things are impossible, I encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast episode, I encourage you to break that word impossible, take the I am, break that up and possible. So you are possible. And so you have
That's
every
a
ability within you to be the person you want to become. Whatever you focus on is what you become. So if you start focusing internally on who you are, that's where all that information, as we've been talking about, all that information is within you, and information is going to help you become the person that you want to become.
Oh, I like it. I really like it, Anthony. Oh my God. See, doesn't matter how many times I talk to you, there's always goodness come to you. And now you know what I said to people. They will not maybe agree with me. You ask me a question, but I'll always gonna choose to talk to you rather than some big public speaker.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, unfortunately, we've grown up with this programming, with this conditioning that, you
Yeah.
know, from what we've been told. And it just like any computer system, we've got to upgrade it. We've got,
Yeah.
right? And if we don't upgrade it, then we get bugs and we get all sorts of things happening. And it's the same with the human body. We've got to upgrade
True.
our mindset.
True.
And if we upgrade our mindset, then it's going to serve us till the next version update comes along, right? If you look at Apple and Microsoft and all these different companies, they're constantly updating their devices with new software to protect, right?
You are spot on. Yes, that's so true, Anthony. That's so true. That's you said very well. I'm still on 97%. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking myself. I'm 52 years old. 97% of my 50. Stop lying. It's true, man. Like, like I know in the war, like imagination plays a big role, and we see things. I mean, I remember many times I saw that during the night the one tree, was walking towards us. I mean, neighbor says to Mario, they're coming. I said, they're coming. You see, neighbor's like, yeah, they're coming. So we'll shoot on a tree. Like in the morning, there's nobody. There was a tree. So the imagination, 97% of the time, I saw things that are not there. So it is true. I like it. Is what you said, Anthony. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, subconscious mind only knows about the present and it only only focuses on what we can imagine, right? What we
Yeah.
visualize. So if we
Yes.
if we let our thoughts just pass and we imagine what we want to become and focus on what we want to imagine to become, then we will become that person. Because where your
Yeah.
attention goes, your energy will flow.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
good one. Yeah, that's true.
yeah. So thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome, Anthony. No,
By,
thank you for
by
having
the
me.
by the way, I probably know a little bit more because I'm probably almost 2 years older than you. I'm going to be 54 in February, so there you go.
Okay. Oh my God, you're very much older than me, like a 1 year. Look, I think that, when my parents growing up, I'm believing other people. So like when my father was 50 years old, he was a very old man. And he said, I'm tired of the life. I said, like, what do you mean you're tired of the life? But now when I'm 50, I'm hungry of the life more. But thank you, Anthony, for having me in your podcast. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And to all your listeners and viewers, guys, thank you for choosing the
Yeah,
Anthony podcast to
yeah.
be there.
We're gonna live past 100, both of us.
Yeah, well, oh God. When I have the podcast in 20 stars, like, hello, Anthony,
Oh,
I'm 75 years old, and you are like
yeah.
77.
We'll meet someday and we'll have a party
Sure, oh,
together.
absolutely, we will. Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony.
So thank you so much, Mario. So if you've been listening to this podcast episode and you've got some really amazing insights out of this, I'd encourage you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. Share it on your social media, tag us in so that we can then also interact with you. And remember to follow and subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss another episode and we can get this podcast out to the wider world. You see, when you follow and subscribe and you listen, the platform grows and is able to get that out to the wider world. So lastly, I just want to say to you,
Yes.
you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.
Thank you, Anthony. That's very nice. Thank you,
Thank
all
you,
of your
man.
listeners. Thank you.